Najbardziej zależy na tym, żeby zmusić Kijów do uznania czy do zaczęcia jakichś kontaktów z separatystycznymi republikami. Wczoraj na spotkaniu z Aleksandrem Łukaszenką Władimir Putin po raz kolejny stwierdził, że ukraińskie władze muszą zacząć rozmowy z przedstawicielami prorosyjskich separatystów, gdyż to jest jedyna droga do utrzymania pokoju. I pytanie do Kijowa, do pana Michała Samusa. Proszę pana, czy takie rozmowy w ogóle są możliwe i w jakich okolicznościach, pod jakimi warunkami Kijów mógłby się na nie zgodzić? No, Rosjanie coraz mocniej straszą i Ukrainę, i Zachód, że przypomnę chociażby dzisiejsze białorusko-rosyjskie ćwiczenia z bronią jądrową.
Problem wiąże się z różnym rozumieniem porozumienia mińskiego, ponieważ strona ukraińska rozumie to w ten sposób, że Rosja powinna wycofać wszelkie siły i przekazać kontrolę nad granicą albo siłom ukraińskim, albo międzynarodowym. Z kolei Rosjanie uważają, że powinna zostać zmieniona ukraińska konstytucja, że powinny być wybory na terytoriach okupowanych i dopiero wtedy Rosjanie będą mogli wycofać swoje wojska i przekazać kontrolę nad granicą. Także to jest całkowita sprzeczność, jeżeli chodzi o interpretację porozumienia z Mińska. I to jest kluczowy problem. Także w tej sytuacji nie wydaje mi się, że można by w jakikolwiek sposób to zmienić, ewentualnie poprzez zawarcie innego porozumienia, albo może należy zrezygnować po prostu z tego porozumienia i poszukać jakiegoś innego rozwiązania. Bo w tej chwili ta interpretacja jest całkowicie sprzeczna po obu stronach, więc w tej sytuacji nie jest to możliwe, żeby Kijów podjął negocjacje z przedstawicielami tych terytoriów okupowanych.
No rzeczywiście, na razie nie udało się Moskwie zmusić Kijowa do rozpoczęcia tych negocjacji. I pytanie do pana pułkownika Wojcieka. Proszę pana, rosyjski prezydent stwierdził wczoraj, że tak zwany format normandzki, przypomnijmy, że to jest takie ciało powołane prawie już 8 lat temu, to byli liderzy Niemiec, Francji, Ukrainy i Rosji. Ten format nie zadziałał. Czy to znaczy, że Paryż i Berlin rozczarowały Putina, nie potrafiąc zmusić ukraińskich władz, no właśnie, do ustępstw w sprawie autonomii Donbasu? I proszę o krótką odpowiedź.
Jeżeli chodzi o wnioski ze spotkania w Berlinie w formacie normandzkim, wyglądają następująco. Dla Putina to jest kolejny pretekst polityczny, żeby powiedzieć: spójrzcie, ja nie jestem w stanie rozwiązać tego problemu, ponieważ Ukraina nie robi tego, co powinna, więc muszę poszukać innego rozwiązania. To jest też element jego wojny hybrydowej. To jest kolejny element dezinformacji. Czyli Putin próbuje powiedzieć: nie możemy traktować, nie możemy negocjować, a to nie moja wina, to ich wina, ponieważ oni nie chcą wesprzeć dobrego rozwiązania politycznego.
Przepraszam, że wchodzę w słowo, ale niestety musimy kończyć. Oznacza to również, że jednak Zachód na razie nie uległ się, na razie nie uległ naciskom Putina i no, zobaczymy, piłka jest w grze. Dziękuję bardzo moim dzisiejszym gościom, dziękuję bardzo państwu. Życzę miłego tygodnia i zapraszam za tydzień.
Początek infekcji gardła? Strepsils zwalcza wirusy i bakterie odpowiedzialne za rozwój infekcji. Szybko łagodzi ból, usuwając jego przyczynę. Przed użyciem zapoznaj się z treścią ulotki dołączonej do opakowania, bądź skonsultuj się z lekarzem lub farmaceutą, gdyż każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
A w taką pogodę co bierzecie na odporność? To co zawsze. Rutin... A myślałaś o witaminie D3 i cynku?
No są potrzebne. Ale kto by tam łykał tyle tabletek?
A my zmieniliśmy na Rutinę C Max D3. Jedna tabletka zawiera 2 razy więcej rutozydu, witaminy C i cynku, no i oczywiście witaminę D3. Aż 2000 jednostek w jednej tabletce.
Biorę Rutina C Max D3 i czuję się świetnie.
I cena jest bardzo przystępna.
To już wiem, co od dzisiaj będziemy stosować.
Rutina C Max D3 odporność na potęgę.
Wszystkim małym odkrywcom czasem przeszkadza ząbkowanie. Nowy, szybko działający żel Nurodent. Twój maluch odkrywa świat. My dajemy szybką ulgę w ząbkowaniu. Nurodent.
Już ponad 1 800 000 domów w Polsce lśni od Cilit Bank.
Szorowanie zacieków z kamienia to był jakiś horror.
Osad z mydła na płytkach. Pozbycie się go to była droga przez mękę.
Dlatego kupiłam Cilit Bank,
Który rozwiązał problem.
ponieważ Cilit Bank usuwa 100% kamienia.
Utrzymanie łazienki w czystości przestało mnie przerażać.
Cilit Bank usuwa 100% kamienia. Sprawdź! Zaschnięty tłuszcz na kuchence? Wypróbuj Cilit Bank, który usuwa 100% tłuszczu. Cilit Bank. Odtłuszczanie bez szorowania.
Ostry ból gardła? Weź Strepsils Intensive, który wnika głęboko w warstwy tkanki gardła, zwalcza stan zapalny i przynosi długotrwałą ulgę. Przed użyciem zapoznaj się z treścią ulotki dołączonej do opakowania, bądź skonsultuj się z lekarzem lub farmaceutą, gdyż każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża Twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
TVP Info. Wiesz więcej.
W przypadku niektórych szczepień nabyta odporność maleje z czasem, dlatego powtarzanie szczepień to działanie konieczne, normalne i bezpieczne. Pandemia zostanie z nami tym dłużej, im większy odsetek populacji pozostanie niezaszczepiony. Nie pozwól na to. Wybierz mądrze. Zaszczep się.
Każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża Twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
Kapsułki Nurofen Express Forte zaczynają uwalniać substancję przeciwbólową już w 60 sekund i wchłaniają się dużo szybciej niż tabletki. Przed użyciem zapoznaj się z treścią ulotki dołączonej do opakowania, bądź skonsultuj się z lekarzem lub farmaceutą, gdyż każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża Twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
O, czy kaszel zaskoczył Cię nagle w środku dnia? Wypróbuj nowość. Strepsils na kaszel w wygodnej kapsułce do połknięcia, która szybko i skutecznie tnie wydzielinę na kawałki, ułatwia odkrztuszanie i zwalcza kaszel. Nowy Strepsils na kaszel. Przed użyciem zapoznaj się z treścią ulotki dołączonej do opakowania, bądź skonsultuj się z lekarzem lub farmaceutą, gdyż każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża Twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
Wszystkim małym odkrywcom czasem przeszkadza ząbkowanie. Nowy, szybko działający żel Nurodent. Twój maluch odkrywa świat. My dajemy szybką ulgę w ząbkowaniu. Nurodent.
Melatonina Lekam. Pierwszy i jedyny lek z melatoniną w 3 dawkach. Numer 1 na sen w Polsce. Przed użyciem zapoznaj się z treścią ulotki dołączonej do opakowania, bądź skonsultuj się z lekarzem lub farmaceutą, gdyż każdy lek niewłaściwie stosowany zagraża Twojemu życiu lub zdrowiu.
Pilne. W takich okolicznościach Zdrawska Pomorskiego, szanowni państwo, od późnych godzin nocnych, od poranka cała Polska zmaga się z wichurami. I jak państwo wiedzą, w późnych godzinach nocnych i rano te wichury przeszły przez zachodnią część Polski, później w ciągu dnia przez centralną, w tej chwili przechodzą przez wschodnią część Mazowsza, więc różnie wygląda sytuacja w różnych częściach kraju. I szanowni państwo, o skali, z jaką dzisiaj służby muszą się mierzyć, niech najlepiej wskażą pewne liczby. Na co dzień Państwowa
The head
Straż...
of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Pushilin, just ordered a general mobilization amid soaring tensions in the conflict zone after an increase in mortar shelling. Residents of the republic have been ordered to evacuate. The same decision has been implemented by the authorities of the Luhansk People Republic.
Russian-backed rebel authorities in eastern Ukraine continued evacuating residents of Donetsk and surrounding areas as several buses were seen leaving for Russia. It is estimated that more than 6,000 people were evacuated thus far.
We are taking what's needed, food for a day and some necessary things.
At the same time, authorities of both Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics ordered a general military mobilization. Authorities' decision followed an increase in shelling along the line of control in the Donbas region over the last 2 days.
I call on fellow countrymen who are in reserve to come to the military commissariat. Today I signed a decree on general mobilization.
Most of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People Republic's residents are Russian speakers, and many have already been granted Russian citizenship. Ukraine says that DPR's authorities are not separatists but Russian proxies, something the Kremlin denies.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko observed joint military exercises of their armies, during which ballistic missiles tests were carried out.
Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, informed about the commencement of the exercises. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation said the exercises were planned in advance, despite them taking place during a severely vulnerable situation in the Donbass. Putin and Lukashenko watched the exercises from the Kremlin Operational Center. The exercises were carried out by the troops of air and space forces of the Russian Federation, the troops of the Southern Military District of the Russian Federation, the Strategic Missile Forces, and the Northern and Black Sea fleets. According to Russian declarations, their aim was to check the readiness of the military command and control bodies, as well as the reliability of strategic weapons systems, both nuclear and conventional. During the exercises, the Zircon and Kinzhal hypersonic missiles were fired. The Yars intercontinental missile was launched in Pleshetsk, and the Sineva missile from the Barents Sea. According to the announcement on the Kremlin website, all exercise rocket launches were successful.
In face of Russian border expansion aspirations, United States President issued a statement regarding the possible invasion of Ukraine. Amidst rising tensions, Joe Biden did not forget to mention Ukrainian resilience.
During the recent White House briefing, US President Joe Biden spoke about the situation surrounding Ukraine. Facing the ongoing threats posed by the Russian Federation, he praised his Ukrainian allies for their behavior during these stressful times.
Throughout these tense moments, the Ukrainian forces have shown great judgment and, I might add, restraint. They refused to allow the Russians to bait them into war. But the fact remains, Russian troops currently have Ukraine surrounded from Belarus along the Russian border and with Ukraine to the Black Sea in the south and all of its border.
Biden also spoke about whether a decision has already been made at the Kremlin and is Ukraine's fate sealed.
Do you feel confident that he hasn't made that decision already?
As of this moment, I'm convinced he's made the decision. We have reason to believe that.
Despite the ongoing rounds of diplomatic talks, Vladimir Putin seems not deterred by the Western sanctions. Just this week, Russian Federation launched what UK Prime Minister called a false flag operation, shelling a kindergarten with mortar fire. According to both the US and UK intelligence, a Russian invasion could occur in the nearest future. Despite officials of both countries being adamant of the validity of information gathered, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is not confident of Russian intentions.
American Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin met with the representatives of the Lithuanian government. As the tensions on Ukrainian borders keep escalating, NATO is firmly strengthening its eastern flank.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielius Landsbergis in Vilnius in order to discuss the recent developments on the Ukrainian border.
Everyone in Lithuania, Estonia, in Latvia to know, and I want President Putin and the Kremlin to know, that the United States of America stands with our allies.
The talks come amidst further Russian military presence in Belarus. Earlier, Austin met with Lithuanian Prime Minister with the aim of bolstering the NATO's eastern flank with more US troops on European soil.
But conflict is not inevitable. Mr. Putin can choose a different path. The United States, in lockstep with our allies and partners, have offered him an opportunity to pursue a diplomatic solution.
The talks further amplified their desire to reach a diplomatic consensus with Russia. Despite Moscow denying all allegations of aggressive intent, the US authorities are adamant that Russian Federation will engage in military confrontations.
While the world awaits a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainians themselves stress that their country has suffered from Russian aggression for years. 8 years ago, on February 18, 2014, mass street protests known as Euromaidan turned into violent clashes, during which over 100 people lost their lives.
People in Kyiv are commemorating the Heavenly 100, a group of 130 people who lost their lives during the clashes in 2014 at the culmination of the Euromaidan protests. People who witnessed the revolution 8 years ago are now fearing a full-scale Russian invasion of their homeland.
We are ready for any kind of scenario. By the way, I can say that a lot of people are tired of waiting, of getting calculation what will happen. The most important that we should be ready to defend our land, our identity and our future. That's the most important.
Ordinary Ukrainians have been joining units of territorial defense and taking up arms in preparation for the possible war.
We are scared but not afraid because we are ready to fight for our independence, for our freedom, for Ukraine, because it's my motherland and I was born here.
In 2013, the then president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, decided not to sign an association agreement with the European Union. This led to large-scale street protests by those Ukrainians who wanted to see their country aligned closer with the EU than with Russia. When the government attempted to forcibly remove the protesters occupying the central square in the capital Kyiv, violent clashes erupted. More than 100 demonstrators lost their lives. Following the clashes, Yanukovych fled to Russia, a transitional government was established, and new elections were called. Within weeks, Russia took over and annexed the Ukrainian region of Crimea. Meanwhile, pro-Russian rebels took over eastern parts of the country, beginning a war which is still going on. The so-called Revolution of Dignity led to Ukraine taking a clearly pro-European stance and taking steps to decrease its reliance on Russia.
Poland has made progress in talks with the European Commission on unblocking COVID-19 recovery funds, said Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki after meeting the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. He added that he believes that a deal can be reached. Brussels has yet to approve Warsaw's National Recovery Plan, which is necessary to unblock the 36 billion euros in funding due to a dispute over judicial reforms.
The European Court of Justice has rejected the complaints lodged by Poland and Hungary. These regarded the European Commission's decision to withhold assets from the Recovery Fund due to perceived erosion of the rule of law in the Central European countries.
Under the pretext of the alleged rule of law, they actually used the mechanism of transferring power from the nation-states, from the sovereign states, to the headquarters in Brussels, where the threads are pulled by the most influential, deciding on the direction of changes in the European Union. First of all, one should look at Berlin.
Poland risks losing 55 billion euros in grants and loans if European institutions decide to use them as leverage. To counteract the political and financial pressure from Brussels, Poland and Hungary consolidated efforts within the Visegrad Group. On Friday, ministers of funds and regional development of the Visegrad Group have met to discuss common goals and means of cooperation.
There is a new development in the situation at the Canadian Freedom Convoy. Ottawa has deployed police forces to clear the streets of protesters who have been holding their ground for over 3 weeks now. Despite a storm of support coming from all over the world, Canadian authorities don't seem to have been persuaded.
In face of a standstill with the protesting truckers in Ottawa, Canadian police force have started moving the picketeers from the street. Servicemen dragged protesting drivers out of the vehicles and, with hands zip-tied behind them, took them to the police precinct.
We're focused on returning our city to the place that we all know and love. We will run this operation 24 hours a day until the residents and community have their entire city back.
Despite support from across the country garnered by the protesters, Canadian authorities dispatched police units to clear the city of Ottawa.
We moved officers and equipment into key positions throughout the city and took up 100 checkpoints around the downtown core. We began making arrests of key individuals who were responsible for organizing these unlawful activities. This morning, public order units and a significant number of officers were deployed to support our operations.
It marks yet another action of the government that stands in opposition to what Canadians desire. Prime Minister Trudeau, said to be placed in an undisclosed location for his own safety, is being called upon by people and MPs alike to resign from his positions.
Storm Eunice is passing through Central Europe today, bringing gales, snowstorms, and heavy rain. In the south of England, record winds have been noted reaching the speeds of almost 200 kilometers per hour. The extent of damage is severe.
As Storm Eunice moves to the east, the wind in Poland may blow at speeds up to 130 kilometers an hour. The Institute of Meteorology and Water Management has issued emergency warnings in the entire region. The storm has already swept across UK, Germany and Benelux countries, causing a lot of damage. In London, the O2's arena roof has been partially shredded, requiring an evacuation of approximately 1,000 people. In Belgium, a construction crane fell onto a hospital, injuring the operator, and in Netherlands, 3 people were killed by falling trees. People on streets of European cities struggle to move on the outside.
This has never happened to me. The child is crying. I would have fallen if a woman didn't help me with the stroller. Without the fence, it would have swept me far away. It's strong.
Over the English Channel, winds were blowing at 150 kilometers an hour. Record-breaking gusts were recorded in the south of England, where it reached 195 kilometers an hour. Resulting from the storm, big waves swelling into the coast pose a threat to gathered onlookers.
Our main real task today is, we aren't going to get a lot of shipping out at all, but there's a lot of people on the coast paths, and we're keeping an eye on those. The Coast Guards have asked people not to go on the coast paths because you are going to get waves coming up with all sorts of debris, which could cause all sorts of damage to people.
Many flights around Europe have been cancelled or rerouted as strong winds cause massive problems with landing. The Met Office decided to put the whole UK on red alert, urging the citizens to refrain from going outside.
About Eunice, it's the worst storm in 3 decades that our city has faced. It's the first time ever the Met Office has issued a red weather warning. That means the Londoners should stay indoors unless they've got a really, really good reason to leave.
According to the British Meteorological Office, Storm Eunice, which formed in the middle of the Atlantic and was sped up by the jet stream from the Azores to Europe, is a life-threatening level event.
And so this would be all the latest news for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please remember to stay with us for more here on TVP World.
Hello again, I'm Ella Beszway and you're watching TVP World. Since February 10th on the territory of Belarus, exercises Union Resolve 2022 are held in which both Russian and Belarusian combat units participate. The exercises coincided with an escalation of the crisis at the Ukrainian-Russian border. Together with our guest, Thomas Garrett, Secretary General of the Community of Democracies, we will talk about the maneuvers taking place in Belarus and what role this country plays in the aggressive foreign policy of Vladimir Putin. Welcome.
Thank you.
We know that Belarus under Lukashenko's regime remains a satellite state of Russia, we could say. And why do you think Belarusian dictator strives to be in Putin's good graces?
Well, I think since we saw the fraudulent elections that took place almost 2 years ago now, Lukashenko more than ever is reliant on President Putin and Russia to keep him in power. It's very disappointing because you may recall after the 2014 Russian invasion of Crimea and eastern Ukraine, President Lukashenko of Belarus actually took somewhat of a more neutral tone. He did not support that invasion of sovereignty. Now he has totally turned 100.
You said he lost his allies due to the rigged elections in Belarus, and now he has nobody else to turn to.
You know, I think that's true. And what I also the point I wanted to make with you today was that I think we have to look beyond Moscow's messaging, which is disinformation. This idea that they are concerned about NATO enlargement, this idea that European and Western democracies somehow in a defensive gathering are a threat to them. What I think they want more than anything is to ensure there is not a democracy, a successful democracy on their border. And of course, Ukraine is a democracy going through those ups and downs that many democracies do, but it is a democracy where people speak out, where people vote, where people choose their government. And Belarus was moving in that same direction. And so Putin was actually, I think, confronted not just with one democracy on his border, but with the danger in his mind of another democracy shaping in Belarus.
And now, how is Putin using Lukashenko regime to destabilize Europe?
Well, I think we've somewhat moved on because of the grave threat to Ukraine from the issue of President Lukashenko weaponizing migration just a few months ago. And it's quite clear that given this new dynamic between Belarus and Russia, between Lukashenko and President Putin, we probably have any number of new threats and new challenges to democracy in Poland, in the Baltic states, in Ukraine and Europe.
And now, do you think there is a possibility that Lukashenko might actually not stay loyal to Putin? Because we did hear in the recent weeks, he did mention that he doesn't really want to support an invasion of Ukraine 100%, then he changed his mind. Why do you think that is?
Well, we can only hope that, first of all, he remembers to be consistent with his original position, which was that European borders are not there to be violated just at a whim. Since the Second World War, we have not seen European borders violated so actively as we do with President Putin in Ukraine, in Georgia. And so I'm thinking perhaps Lukashenko understands the inconsistency of his view, but I come back again to what I said earlier, and that is